Greetings and welcome to the 53rd episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases, and as always I'm your host Talk Elf Guy, and this time around we have another batch of 13 random mods for your viewing pleasure, and this episode did take a bit longer than I was, originally anticipating, partly because we're looking at a lot of big mods in this episode, and you'll notice this video is a tad long compared to, our average episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases. And in any event, I do apologise for the delay. The good news is that episode 54 should be a lot easier, since the mod list has already been finalised, and it doesn't, include quite as many massive mods. But in any event, as always, you can find download links for all mods shown down in the video description below. So let's get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is A Bard's Life by Danae. Now, truth be told, this is a pretty massive mod, and this is going to be a pretty long showcase to cover all of the major features it includes. But to start out with, this mod allows you to play as an actual music-playing bard, and in order to, figure out where to start out in your new pursuit of music, you'll want to talk to any bard in the game and start a small introduction quest that'll get you, set up with a lute and music lessons. But before we get to all that, it is, recommended that you start a new game for this mod so you can take advantage of all the new features here, including several new bard-related classes that you can choose from, such as a dire singer, a jester, and a shadow dancer, and each of these classes has a, particular specialty, like destruction music, illusion music, or so on and so forth. There's also a new birth sign called the Wanderer, an ideal symbol for those who, choose the Bard's Life and, travel around from town to town. Eventually, through the introduction quest, you'll meet this fellow here, a master bard who can take you under his wing, for a small fee of course, and teach you the ropes of how to play the lute and, sing songs. And of course, you can always, choose to skip all this and, just grab a lute and head on down to the local pub or tavern and start wailing away. But you might not earn quite as much gold that way, especially if you're just, so inexperienced that you can't really put a good song together. But in any event, if you choose to take lessons, you will need to take 10 lessons in total, I believe, and when you're done, you'll get a lute and some simple songs to play, so you can, be on your merry way towards entertaining patrons at various inns and taverns. Now, when you talk to the proprietors of inns and taverns as a bard, you'll have the dialogue option to entertain the patrons with a song, and starting out, this doesn't, particularly pay very well. Your ability to entertain is tied to your, personality and agility attributes, as well as your skill and fame as a bard. So you'll be lucky to make 10 gold an hour starting out, but eventually it'll turn into more and more over time, often with other benefits. For example, you can eventually make 120 drakes a song, not to mention dinner and drinks on the house. As your fame grows, random fans will even, give you little items and small gifts randomly when you talk to them, which is a cool little feature, to say the least. Now, since A Bard's Life is more than just a way to make money, it's prudent to, look at some of the actual gameplay considerations. If you choose a bard-related class when, making your character, you'll find you'll have access to a number of, bardic abilities that you can cast once a day. As a dire singer, my character, for example, has 4 destruction-related powers, and 4 restoration, fortification, and swift swimming powers that can come in handy both in fights and, with just traversing the world or, talking to NPCs. Likewise, you'll start out with a single music sheet, and each music sheet you find casts a particular spell when you play it on your lute, like a charm or absorb health or, what have you. And in order to, get more music sheets and bardic spells, you can, ask other bards you meet in the world to, teach you their music. Though they may have, small quests for you to do in exchange, like this bard here wants a drum, and will happily teach you a song in exchange. And I should really mention that A Bard's Life does include new music tracks for when you're entertaining patrons and, playing these spell songs. I think there's at least 20 new music tracks in here that makes, finding a new spell song just, particularly exciting. And you can also find music books in certain, manners around Vardenfell, and picking them up will also allow you to learn new bardic spells as well. And you can also find new songs on hostile bards, located in dungeons all over Vardenfell. And you'll have to kill them to gain access to their music first, but this is just another way for you to gain access to new spell songs, and once your fame as a bard has, gotten high enough, you'll be approached by a dark elf looking to open a tavern with you in the Ascadian Isles region. After all, what better way for a famous bard to make some gold than by joining up with a permanent inn overlooking the beautiful lakes and waterways of the Ascadian Isles. And in any event, he'll need an investment of 20,000 gold to get, things started, which is a bit steep, but by the time your, bardic fame has reached the level where this quest has actually started, you should have, earned several thousand gold by playing your music already, so it kind of balances out in the end. And in any event, once you've invested in this new tavern, you can find it here just a short ways north of Pelesiad, on a small peninsula, jutting out into Lake Amaya here. It's a really nice looking 2-story tavern with a nice bit of, flowers and, the like out front, and in the back there's a set of docks on the lake, and also a double deck, which you'll eventually be able to upgrade, as we'll see later on. But, regardless, in its initial state, this is a pretty unique and charming tavern that you'll be able to call your own. And inside, you'll find the tavern proper, which, starts out as, well, a bit bare. There's tables and some seating for patrons, but there's not really a whole lot of decorations to go with the seating here, or, drinks for that matter. And the tavern can be slowly upgraded over time by doing a number of, different quests, which all starts out when you first arrive and are tasked with, getting some booze from different suppliers around Vardenfell to, get things started a bit. And as you do these quests and retrieve some basic items and services for your new tavern, the interior will gradually update, as you can see here. First with, bottles and cups as booze starts to flow, not to mention your first few patrons, which will, start bringing in a steady flow of gold to your new establishment. And one of the really cool things about your new tavern is that it has real-time gondolier service between your inn and other parts of Lake Amaya, with the gondolier traveling around in real time from one set of docks to the next in a big circle. And you can, hitch a ride. It's a slow-going ride at that, but, you'll have to wait for the gondolier to arrive, which may take a while. But it's a really cool feature and adds a bit of life to the Lake Amaya region. And one of the mini upgrades that you can get for your new tavern includes a new decorated outdoor space using the decks, with tables for patrons to sit at and enjoy the scenery of the Ascadian Isles, as well as the outdoor oven for, cooking fish. And you'll also start seeing a lot of patrons just hanging around out here and enjoying the breeze, including one or two that have brought their own, little rowboats and the like. And real quick, I want to show you guys a fully upgraded tavern so you can, appreciate how beautiful this place can become with all the decorations, flowers, and atmosphere in place. Eventually, you can even hire a band of bards to fill the tavern with music, and you can request that they, play a song at any time. And of course, this will all lead to a thriving business opportunity for yourself as well, and, profits will really start to soar. And something else I need to point out here, you can also get your own, unique set of bard armor through the course of playing this Tavern Quest series, which you can see here, and the armor has a cool little, loot logo on it to go along with the loot you're carrying, so everyone will know that you're a bard, and no one will mistake you for, a pauper or something like that. Now, as you become more famous and level up both your character and your reputation, you can find other tavern owners around the island of Vardenfell with unique loot that they'll be willing to part with, for a price of course. Assuming you're famous enough and of a high enough level to impress them, the lowest level of these special loots is level 15 and the highest is level 50. So it gives you, something to look forward to, and these are, some pretty nice looking loots as well. And anyway, going back to your tavern, you'll eventually get access to your own private quarters on the top floor here, and this is a lovely set of rooms for you to rest and relax in after your journeys, going from town to town and playing your music. And your rooms do come with a display case here for storing items, and there's even an instrument case where you can, store the loot that you've collected over your adventures, as you can see here. As soon as you put one in, it'll become visible automatically on one of the racks here. And there's also a armor mannequin where you can, display your bard armor, and you also find a small bathroom here with a soaking tub that you can use. Just, draw the water and it'll restore all your properties and attributes and things like that. There's also an alchemy lab with a special alchemical setup where you can, brew potions automatically without putting a bunch of equipment in your inventory. And naturally, there's also alchemical sorters which will automatically sort your ingredients into an ingredient cabinet here. And there's just a lot of cool features in your personal quarters, including, lots of labeled containers, glass cabinets that you can open, and a very cozy lounge area as well. Now, I realize that this has been a pretty long showcase already, and we're skipping an absolute ton of features here, but there's one last thing I want to show you guys, and that's a companion that you can get as part of a bard's life. You'll find this woman hiding in a tomb near Cedar, and apparently she was a prisoner on the same ship as you, but escaped and is now hiding from the guards. She has a bit of a background story, and if you choose, you can, help her by getting her a weapon and a helmet that she can use to hide her face from the guards, and she'll become your companion and travel alongside you. And this is just one of the far too many features to count of a bard's life. I'd definitely recommend giving this mod a try. For our house mod of the week this week, we have yet another Siltstrider home by Sania, and this mod basically adds a small house, really more of a door in between the stairs at the Balmora Siltstrider port. And inside you'll find a cozy and charming, sort of Velothi style abode with a small kitchen right off to the side of the main entry hall here. And it is, a very nicely decorated, sort of cozy chamber with a lot of personal charm. And there's a small breakfast table for, taking meals, and a cozy oven for cooking, and it's just a beautiful little room. There's also a small storage room beneath the kitchen that has a fair bit of storage for you to use, and there's also an alchemy and magic lab, which is, kind of an interestingly designed room, with some, skulls and a skeletal corpse for some reason. But there's also some alchemical equipment, a fair amount of display space, and a note from the author, not to mention a teleport ring that you can use to take you back home at any time. And this home also comes with 2 bedrooms, including a guest bedroom with 2 beds that companions can use, and a master bedroom which, isn't all that large, but it's certainly cozy. And finally, there's also a small display room with a number of display tables located right beneath the master bedroom, and there's even a few labeled containers here for convenience. This week's gameplay mod of the week is MWSC Containers by Greatness7, and this is kind of an interesting mod. It adds a new merchant NPC with a shop stall along the upper wasteworks of the foreign court in Vivek, with an interesting display of items, sort of cluttering his table, and it turns out these are all containers that you can purchase for a price, and each container is geared towards a certain kind of item. Like ingredients, or arrows, weapons, lockpicks, books, potions, scrolls, clutter, armor, or, whatever have you. And the containers themselves aren't very expensive. They range in price from about 5 gold to 65 gold, so they're very affordable. You can buy as many different, sort of containers as you want from the table here. And once you've purchased a few containers, you can activate them on the table here, and they'll start out by just, acting like a normal container would, you'd open them up and you can see their inventory, and eventually though, you'll get the option to pick them up and put them in your inventory, and some containers are different from others, like the ammo container, for example, has the option to stash all and retrieve all, and basically what that means is that you can automatically store all of your arrows, bolts, throwing stars, and, the rest of that stuff in here using the stash all command. Basically, they just move from your inventory into this container. And the retrieve all command does, the opposite naturally. It takes all of the items in that container and places them back in your inventory, which is obviously super convenient for organizing items and keeping your inventory minimally cluttered. And in any event, once you pick up a container, you can find it in your inventory, and not only that, but you can access the contents of each container from inside your own inventory. So you don't need to, take them back out again to get whatever you're, looking for. And I want to show off the stash all function here, and you can see I have a potion container in my inventory, and I can activate from the inventory menu and select stash all, and it immediately stores all the potions I'm carrying, and I can activate it in my inventory again to browse the contents of the container, and sure enough, there's all of my potions. And you'll also notice that when I store potions in this special container, my overall encumbrance went down, so this is a handy way to, free up some space for more loot, especially, it's sort of handy during those dungeon raids. And you can also place these containers on the ground, and they'll still have, everything you put in them, which again is quite handy for storing and organizational purposes. And I should probably mention that this mod does require the latest Morrowind scripting extended alpha, and you'll find a download link for that down below in the video description. And needless to say though, this is a really fantastic convenience gameplay mod that works like a charm, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Next up we have our Dungeon Mod of the Week, which this week is Fallon Serrano, the Ruined Stronghold by Carrot Ferret. And this is sort of a major dungeon expansion for Fallon Serrano in the Southern Grazelands, in that this mod, sort of expands both the number of interior cells related to this Dunmeri stronghold, as well as the exterior. In fact, it kind of just changes the whole landscape around Fallon Serrano. No longer an idyllic sort of, Grazelands landscape. Fallon Serrano is surrounded by ash and the ancient ruins of a once proud symbol of Dunmeri independence. Instead of just, the central stronghold complex, there's now several smaller stronghold buildings surrounding the immediate landscape, as well as, ancient ruins from what may have been a small city, giving this otherwise, sort of dime a dozen stronghold a bit more character, really. And this all does make for a pretty dramatic landscape. You have these towering stronghold structures surrounded by broken aqueducts, ruined ancient houses, and, lots of ash, like an open wound on the very landscape itself, really, gradually turning back to the normal green of the Grazelands the further north you go. And needless to say, this will conflict with a lot of other mods that take place in the Southern Grazeland region, in particular, since it's such a large area. Heading inside, you'll find several new interior cells expanding this large Dunmeri stronghold, with several new rooms, corridors, hallways, and, more massive chambers waiting to be found in the depths to explore and, sort of fight through. And there's also, a sort of mixture of opponents that you'll face, including Daedra, such as scamps and the like, as well as the undead with skeletons, ghosts, and so on and so forth. Like a lot of dungeon mods, this is one where you're going to, sort of want to bring some torches with you, as some of these chambers can get, perilously dark, with undead just waiting to jump from the shadows and, maim you or whatever. And truth be told, some of these dungeon chambers are quite maze-like and easy to get lost in, with numerous side passageways and dead ends. Despite this though, you can often see that these rooms were once used for practical purposes, like many Dunmer strongholds, so you'll see abandoned bedrooms, dining rooms, barracks, as these were, once lively places long ago. And anyway, I'm obviously not going to show off the entire dungeon here, since that would, completely ruin the fun of exploring it for yourself. But I will say that this is a really nice medium-sized dungeon mod that blends in well with the vanilla game, at least I think so, and it certainly, adds some epic landmarks to the Grazelands region, which, I quite enjoyed, and I'd recommend checking it out. For our items mod of the week this week, we have Zip's Furniture Store by Zip, and this mod adds a new shop to the St. Dallin canton of Vivec, which, as you might suspect from the mod name, is basically a furniture shop with lots of furniture piled up here in the main shop room. And this is a basic and, sort of lightweight furniture buying mod with a number of furniture items for you to purchase, including tables, bookshelves, beds, rugs, and chairs, and a few different furniture styles, including Dunmeri and common styles, and most of these furniture items are between 300 and 800 gold apiece, so they're fairly affordable, though of course they do still weigh a lot. And there's actually a small area in the back of this store that you can use to, check out your new furniture in-game. And, just to show off the furniture scripts here, they include a fairly basic menu with the option to pick up the furniture again, leave them in place, or in the case of beds, to rest in them. Now, this isn't as feature-complete as some other, furniture mods like David Humphrey's, but it does provide a lightweight and simple furniture option that's compatible with most other mods, including most of the furniture mods for that matter, so you could potentially use this with just about any other mod that you might like. This week's quest mod of the week is Orgora's Replacement by Datanoth and Devonis, and this mod starts out in Caldera with an Imperial investigator that's looking into some suspicious activity with the local pawnbroker Orgora, one of the shops along, Caldera's main street. And when this mod first came out, there was, quite a lot of confusion about it, since, most people weren't aware that Orgora is, involved in a number of illegal activities, but there's actually a fair amount of, flavor documents that, suggests this that you can find in the vanilla game, and this mod is based around those flavor documents. And the first part of this mod involves, finding that evidence and delivering it to the Imperial Investigator for a small reward, but, first, before you can get anything, you'll need to arrest Orgora and escort him to Ebonheart. And it probably goes without saying that, using this mod will conflict with any mods that directly relate to Agola, as he won't really be very inclined to talk to you after you've arrested him. And it is a bit of a trek to get him down to the Hawkmoth Legion Fort in Ebonheart. You'll have to escort him quite a ways. But once you've, done all of that, you'll be able to track down a new merchant to fill the gap left by Agola. And you'll find a new shop in the Ascadian Isles region run by a pair of very curious people with a small gar stables off to the side. And these NPCs actually have quite a bit of dialogue to them, with a fair amount of, background information that's a bit on the comedic side, maybe. But I don't want to, delve too much into specifics here, since, this is a very short quest mod, and I don't want to spoil everything. And in any event, though, this will all result with a new merchant in charge of Agola's pawn shop in Caldera, a new merchant with 1,000 gold and a wide array of goods, to check out, and some new dialogue as well. And this is a fairly simple and straightforward quest mod that really just, adds a bit more to do if you just, pay attention to the background documents and the environment of Caldera. Next up, we have our Landmass Mod of the week, and this week we have the Lost City by Atropause, and this mod starts out when you meet someone at the Vivek docks, who will tell you about how his entire family was murdered by a clan of vampires, and how he needs someone to go investigate and presumably kill these vampires. And this quest will, take you to a small town run by the East Empire Company, a little ways east to Sadrith Mora. And yes, this mod does conflict with a town already built before you ask. We'll get to more details about that in a moment. But supposedly, vampires have been harassing the small harbour town of Podolia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not really sure. And it's really quite a cool looking and scenic little harbour town, built right along the hillside here, with layers of town buildings, with shacks down below, and some middle class homes and shops up above, and before, being capped off by the East Empire Company fort. And as you guys know, I always love to see verticality in city design and housing design, so as you might expect, I absolutely think this design here is, pretty fantastic. The landmass that Podolia is on, though, isn't, particularly large. Really, there's just enough room for the town here, and maybe a couple of dungeons on the other side of the hill, as we'll get to later on. But this isn't the only landmass included in the Lost City, and I'm honestly kind of surprised I forgot about this mod until now. We've covered so many landmass mods on this channel, I don't really know how this one, slipped my notice for so long. But I believe it was originally released sometime in the mid-2000s, like a lot of other, landmass mods that were released around the same time period. And truth be told, the Lost City is perhaps more of a quest mod, since it does include quite a few, quests, as we'll see in a moment. But first, I want to take a look at some of the interiors of the town here, just to, give you guys an idea of what to expect. They're all, fairly well decorated, and a lot of the NPCs that you'll meet will have a little bit of unique dialogue to them, or, some new dialogue topics that you can ask about, which may or may not lead to a few miscellaneous quests. There are a number of miscellaneous quests involved in this town. And there's also a common goods trader in town with about 12,000 bartering gold, which is, really quite a lot for Morrowind. So this might be a place that you might want to stop by for selling off your items and the like later on. And you also find a small alchemical shop where you can, buy health potions and other restorative items to help you out on your adventures. So the stock of items here is actually, kind of limited. And real quick, here you can see one of the shack interiors, which has a sort of, unique set of decorations, and also a pet rat with an interesting name. But like I said before, the meat of the content of this mod is really the quests that you'll find, including several pretty creative miscellaneous quests like this one, where you can help out a woman in distress, which turns out to be a decidedly more complicated situation dealing with pirates off the coast. Apparently, their idea of a good time is trapping people on a sinking ship and waiting for them to drown, though why they would do this to your Argonian friend here is a bit of a mystery, given that they, can breathe underwater and everything. But details. This is a pretty neat quest, really. I mean, it's one of only 2 or 3 quest mods that I know of that involves a ship sinking in real time. There aren't really a whole lot of those, and which is just a really neat feature, I think. And as you might imagine, this quest naturally involves fighting pirates, and this is just one of a large number of side quests included in the Lost City. And we haven't even really, gotten to the main quest yet, but we will in a second. I just wanted to, show a bit of the combat going on here before moving on. And speaking of the main quest, you'll find that much of the main quest involves work for the company, which is presumably the East Empire Company, though that isn't really gone into much detail here. And you can get started with this fellow here on the main quest, and the quest chain is actually pretty long. And one of the first dungeons that you'll have to fight through during the mod's main quest is a medium-sized vampire lair off the coast from town, and you may recall the introductory quest to this island was about vampires, so this kind of, fits in with all that. Now, this is a decently high-level quest mod. I'd say you'll probably want to be around level 20, possibly level 15 would work as well, I don't know, but there are some tough fights here that'll be a bit of a pain if you're not, well prepared, and you should expect to see some ebony and glass equipment being used by your opponents in this mod, so that should give you some idea of what you might, be dealing with in terms of the amount of damage and all that. And in any event, the main quest will take you all over the place, from new islands to even new locations on Vvardenfell itself, like say in Ebony Mine, that's run into some trouble with a band of Twin Lamps bandits looking to free the slaves and ruin the company's profits. And there's a ton of cool locations included in this mod, like this nicely detailed set of mining caverns that are pretty cool to explore. And some of these quests do have multiple different ways that you can solve them, siding either with the bandits or the company's bottom line, which could affect the rest of the main quest. I don't really know, I haven't actually played that far yet. And real quick, I did just want to show off a second set of islands that's added by this mod, the islands of Bogmire, located south of Vivec and Ebonheart in the Inner Sea, and again, this mod definitely conflicts with town rebuild, so just keep that in mind. I'll just show you guys where these new landmasses are on the world map in a second, but first, you can see there's a small traders settlement, and as the name of this set of islands would suggest, there are a lot of bog-like environments, similar to the Bitter Coast region, with swamps, shacks, and overgrown trees, and of course, this is a location used as part of the mod's main quest that you'll, get to during the first set of quests that you'll do for the company. And there are a few smaller islands off a ways from the main Bogmire Island, one of which even includes a Dwemer ruin complex of some sort, and there's a few other landmarks around these fair isles, such as a smuggler's hideout or sunken ship and, other things of that nature, though the main point of interest is no doubt the Dwemer ruin, which probably plays a part in a later quest of, some kind. But I don't want to give away too much, so real quick, here you can see the new islands on the world map, and these islands will conflict with both Tower Rebuilt and I believe Sea of Destiny, and possibly other landmass mods as well. Some of these are in, pretty popular areas, unfortunately. For our NPC mod of the week this week, we have Kintarosa by Sabergirl, and this is a rather interesting new race mod that you can choose to play as when you first start the game, the Kintarosa, and, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not really sure. And it's sort of like this dinosaur beast race, or at least that's the best way I can describe it, really. They have two different yet, very intimidating looking heads that you can choose from, and 5 different hairstyles, and this is a male-only race with a focus on warrior skills, so, they mage in Longblade, Marksman, Axe, and also do both light and medium armor. And you can see one of the Kintarosa here, and they are really, intimidating looking. I mean, really, this guy is like half dinosaur and half crocodile. I definitely wouldn't want to get, caught in a dark alley with him, though his somewhat luminescent skin, gives people at least a decent shot of seeing him coming first and, running away. I'm also not really sure if you can tell from this shot or not, since there's no other NPCs around to directly compare to, but the Kintarosa are much taller than your average citizens of Tamriel. They're even taller than High Elves, believe it or not, and so that's something to keep in mind here. They're certainly a very interesting looking race to be sure, and there's also a new dungeon added in by Sabergirl with, some of these Kintarosa hanging out in the Malag Umur region of Vvardenfell. And as you might expect, these are some, really difficult opponents to face in battle. They're extremely strong with, decently powerful weapons, and not only that, but they seem to carry an absurd number of paralyzed-specific weapons, so unless you bring a few dozen cure paralysis potions with you, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time frozen in place, slowly, being chopped to death by these monstrous beast NPCs, and really, I'd probably bring about 100 cure paralysis potions with me, and 100 restore health potions as well, because this is one tough fight, and you'll want to be probably around level 25 through level 30 to really stand a chance at all. And just as a comparison, here you can see me fighting these NPCs using a Kentarosa character, and you can more clearly tell the height difference here, and this may actually be a problem in some areas, since vanilla Morrowind wasn't really designed with such tall characters in mind, so that might be an issue of some dungeons and some other environments. But in any event, this is both a fun new race mod and, potential dungeon mod, so it might be worth checking out. This week's new Meshes and Textures mod of the week is Iceblade of the Monarch PBR by Flash3113. And as the name of this mod would imply, this is a replacer for the famed Iceblade of the Monarch, one of the legendary artifact weapons that you can find in Morrowind, and also one of my personal favourite long blades for warrior type characters. I almost always make a beeline for this as soon as, I hit level 10, but anyway, this is a complete replacer that includes PBR, or physical based rendering support, which we'll show off in a moment. But first I wanted to look at the normal replacer, because you don't necessarily need PBR for this replacer to work. You can see my character holding the Iceblade of the Monarch here, and even with just the normal replacer, it looks pretty fantastic. And just to take a closer look at it and get, real up close with the camera here, you can see the Iceblade of the Monarch under interior lighting conditions in Narano Manor here, and again, this is just the normal replacer without PBR. But it's still, fantastically detailed. When you get up close to the blade, you can, just really make out a lot of minor details, like those Daedric carvings, or slight bumps in the steel blade, or the leather wraps of the hilt. But of course, the meat of this mod is the physical-based rendering version of this replacer, which you can kind of see here. Hopefully I have everything set up right. You need to toggle through the light settings that come with the Morrowind graphics extender in order for, PBR to show up correctly. But in any event, there's just an absolute fantastic level of detail going on here. This practically feels like a real blade that could have come, from the real world. It just has so much detail to it. And again, I just like to, take a closer look with the PBR version so you can, really appreciate how beautiful this blade is. I have to say that Flash3113 has been doing a lot of just, spectacular work recently, and I personally can't wait to see what he makes next. He's done just such an amazing job with a lot of these replaces so far. Next up we have our Modest Resource mod of the week, and this week we have Nomad Wooden Fort Modest Pack by Nomad. And this is a fairly simple Modest pack that adds 4 new modular pieces that you can use to build wooden forts like this one, including, wooden palisade walls, corner pieces, gates, and stairs, as you can see here. And I actually scaled up the individual wall pieces here to about, 2 times their original size, because, they're kind of small starting out, but you can see they, make for some, pretty good defensive walls with platforms that could be used by soldiers or archers. And we've actually showcased several mods in the past that have, used these resources, such as, Morrowind Rebirth, the wooden wall around the Raven Rock mod, and there's probably a few more that I'm forgetting about, but anyway, point is, this is a pretty, good quality resource, even by today's standards, and it's perfect for, making defensive fortifications without, resorting to large Imperial stone walls, which is basically the only type of fortification that existed in vanilla Morrowind. And real quick, here you can see the individual pieces at their original size, so you can get a good idea of how modular this set is, and also what they look like without, being sized up. And they're really, quite small originally, but big enough for characters to pass through the gate here, so, it's not too bad. For our underrated mod of the week this week, we have Lake House by Vaguely Specific, and this mod adds a rather charming Halali-style abode to the swamps of the Bitter Coast region, and, what really makes this manor, or Lake House as it's called, unique, is that it's, pretty much entirely built over the water here, and it's a really cool looking, walled compound with a small little entrance where a rowboat can traverse, and there's also a set of docks around the main manor house, and smaller docks to the side where you'll find an NPC trader, but, more on that later. The design here is pretty fantastic and blends in, well with the swamps, and it also includes a fair amount of exterior detailing with mushrooms, atmospheric blue light sources, and, a bit more. And anyway, as mentioned before, there is a merchant here off on this dock platform, including a number of general goods, such as, a few weapons, potions, and other miscellaneous items for sale, as well as 5,000 bartering gold, which is, pretty convenient to have outside your home. And inside, you'll find a small dining room in the main entry hall, including a servant NPC that appears to just be here for, cosmetic purposes, really, since they don't offer any services or dialogue. And there's also a small area in the back of the first floor here, but, a fair amount of the house is actually underground. And a lot of this home is actually sort of pre-decorated, and down here in the basement you'll find, some pre-decorated shelves, an alchemical garden, some magical items, as well as, one empty bookcase, and a small bedroom to the side that's probably meant for the NPC servant, and of course there's also a small master bedroom up on the second floor, but it's, pretty basic, and this is just a small house mod that you can check out. This week's Blast from the Past mod of the week is Castle Adius by Bellygloss, and I do apologise if I mispronounced that. This mod starts out when you discover a mysterious gate on the island that's home to the ancient Daedric shrine of Al Daedroth. And going through this gate will take you to a curious floating platform that has 4 pedestals surrounding a central crystal, and on each pedestal is some sort of artifact and a riddle, and in order to eventually get to the castle itself that this mod adds, you're going to need to solve each riddle, which will take you to, various places in the game world to retrieve artifacts. And once you have them all, you'll be able to open a portal to your new castle home, and anyway, once you gain access, you'll find a new and quite frankly massive floating castle in its own little realm that you can, freely use if you so desire. And I do need to go ahead and apologize here due to the sheer size of this castle and the fact that it's all basically in one massive interior cell. It is a bit hard on the frame rate here, and you'll notice just a little bit of an FPS drop. Or rather, a massive FPS drop, really, and, but anyway, the castle complex for Castle Adius is massive, with multiple courtyards, walls, towers, gateways, and bridges between buildings, making for a truly epic, sort of castle landscape that's completely yours to call home. There's flowery gardens, tall dominating windows, and large rocky islands in the distance, providing you for some scenic views in this otherwise empty interior world space. Now, I do kind of want to spend a fair bit of time looking at the exterior of this castle because it is, really impressive and epic looking, and it's such a kind of, unique design. I can't really think of too many other, floating island castle mods that I've seen from Morrowind like this, and I have to admit I probably should have included it in the top 10 castle mods video that we did last year. I guess I missed it somehow when going through the archives, but it is a very beautiful castle, and if also, just extremely laggy in a few places. A lot of that probably has to do with the fact that there's a few thousand objects in this one vast interior cell, so you're processing everything at once, which will be sort of an issue for lower and medium end rigs probably. And it should also be mentioned that because this castle is built on an artificial island made out of Westgash style terrain rocks, it will have some minor conflicts with the famed On the Rocks mod that's included with the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul. And you may actually notice a few slight conflicts here and there in this video actually, where the rocks don't exactly match up with the castle, but for the most part it isn't really that noticeable and shouldn't really, cause too many issues. It's mostly just, a cosmetic sort of thing. Now, the castle is actually divided into several buildings and rooms, some of which, like the main dining room that we can see here, are actually off in a separate building away from the main castle. But the dining room itself is actually, pretty amazing looking. I mean, you gotta love the design of the ceiling here with that sort of arched style of design, or all the windows that actually open up onto the exterior with, sunlight streaming in from outside. And there's also some really cool looking gargoyles lining the walls here. It's a really pretty fantastically cool room to dine in. And in addition to a dining room, you also find a library and study with a number of bookshelves and the like, as well as some of these tall open windows looking out towards the exterior world space and letting in some natural daylight. And one of the things you're really going to find a lot with this mod is that a lot of these rooms just have really unique architectural designs. Like, this is a split-level study with an upper-level mezzanine where you'll find a grand piano. And real quick, here you can see an extended wing of the library, which includes a few study tables and a number of bookshelves for you to use. And like any good castle, you'll also find a vault that contains a number of display areas with pedestals that you can use to show off your fancy weapons, armors, and loot that you collected on your adventures. There's also a second floor with a few more shelves and chests that you can use, but this isn't a massive display hall by any means. Indeed, despite the grand appearance of the castle on the outside, many of the interior rooms are relatively small. But there should be enough space here to store a fair amount of stuff, and there is of course a master bedroom with, some more pretty cool looking designs, and including a master bed, a cozy fireplace, a few chairs and a lounge, as well as some containers to store some of your items in, and, a few more exterior windows to enjoy the sunset with. And you also find a kitchen off to one side of the castle near some of the servant wings. And the kitchen isn't all that large really, it has one cooking area with a couple of tables, and there's also some cellars attached to the main kitchen room, such as a wine cellar with wine racks and kegs, and there's also a small storage room for, keeping ingredients as well. And I should also point out that there is a small throne room here, though it doesn't, have too much room for onlookers and the like, but it's still a, pretty scenic looking room nonetheless, where you can hold court. And because this castle is so large and spread out, with numerous areas being divided off into smaller interiors, there's thankfully a quick transport solution to get to one part of the castle from another. You'll find paintings in a lot of rooms that link up to a central gallery, and each of these paintings will teleport you to a different part of the castle for convenience. Which is a good thing, because the castle is kind of labyrinth-like, with dozens of hallways and chambers that snake through the castle's underground, and you'll occasionally find these large sets of hallways that'll connect you to other parts of the castle. But it's still, very easy to get lost down here, especially with about 15 to 20 different servants' quarters down here, which, well, useful if you have a lot of NPC staff, does make it possible to get turned around a bit. And besides a ton of bedrooms for staff NPC, there's also a number of larger bedrooms up on the top floor of the castle for notable companions, or members of the court, or what have you. So there's plenty of places where your NPC friends can live if you, have any. And now we're going to be skipping over a lot of the stuff that this castle includes, partly because I don't want to spoil everything, but also partly because the castle is just so bloody massive that I ended up getting lost far too many times over the course of this showcase. But the last set of chambers that I wanted to show you guys was the chapel, which is a fairly large set of rooms with stained glass windows, and overall this entire castle is just, very epic and cool looking, and it's definitely worth trying out. Finally, for our bonus mod of the week this week, we have Nimawaya Pearl Farm by Cyclex, and basically what this mod does is it allows you to purchase a shack from Jorda, the apothecary in Telmora, and the pearl diving rights for a nearby grotto for a mere 300 gold. And this includes not only the key to the shack, but also a diving helm and fishing rod as well. And you can see the shack here, and it's really not much to look at, just another shack in the Bitter Coast region near Cedarneen. Though it does also have a small docks, of course, and a rowboat that can, take you back to Cedarneen quickly, and it's a fairly nice looking rustic shack, and inside you won't find a whole lot. The interior is pretty bare, with just a bit of, furniture, some containers, such as crates, and of course a bed, and you'll need to, supply your own pillow though. Now, a fun little side activity that's included in this mod is a sort of fishing minigame, where you can, equip your fishing pole and patiently wait for a fish to, nibble. Though more often than not, you'll hook a rock or just, won't catch anything at all, but it's a nice feature nonetheless. But the meat of this mod is intended to be pearl diving with the nearby grotto, and this is a grotto that was in, vanilla Morrowind, and with your special diving helm, you can, go through and collect pearls from the Colops down here, which is a nice way to make some money. And you can also return to Jorda to sell your pearls at full price and in bulk. And this will, net you a toy profit. In fact, this mod may, border almost on cheating, really, since it doesn't, require much investment, and rewards you with a lot of gold in exchange. But, that's up to you whether or not you want to use it or not. And in any event, that wraps up this episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases. Tune in next week for episode 54 with a special Doomer theme. And as always, all download links for all mods shown can be found in the video description below. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.